Hello, civilian. I'm Dirk Durwood, president of the DSC League. What is the DSC League? Well, it stands for Durwood Starfinder Combat. We take Starfinder build rules and mechanics and focus on learning, discussing, experimenting, and competing in both character and ship builds. We exclusively use Roll20 as it is easy to use as well as being the most popular virtual tabletop service out there.
So, hello everyone, and welcome to the DSC League instructional video for Starship Combat, aka The Basics. I am Admiral Tombstone, and I'm here with Sunano and President Durwood, and we're going to go right through the steps. So, when we get into Roll20, we've already had all of our ship sheet filled out and put in there, and admirals have helped you tag your tokens and connect them to your ship sheet, so you've got everything all set, and now you're ready to play. So before each combat, some of the things that you want to do and the steps that we'll be going over in this particular video, just quickly as a sort of reference here. We're going to be checking the ship sheet for accuracy. We're going to be creating macros for the weapons. We'll be placing the ships on the map and seeing what to do about the range and what you want to do when you get to the edge of the map, because sometimes the maps are just not big enough for how fast these ships go. You have to agree on the rules, the time that you're going to be playing, and the number of turns that you're going to play. Because, people have lives. You have to make sure that the game time doesn't interfere too much with life. Then we'll go through the phases. We'll go through engineering phase, helm phase, gunnery phase, etc., and how to repeat the steps there with the initiative and all that. We'll take that in steps. So the first round we'll go through some things. The next round we'll go through a few more, adding to that. So the deeper you go into this video, the more information you're going to get. But the very, very basics are going to be through the first round. So just keep on keeping up with us, and you'll get all the gist of it. So first off, we want to check the ship sheet for accuracy before each and every battle. Reason being is that you're going to be making changes to your ship throughout combat. So I've got my ship sheet here. And there we go. Open up the character sheet, and I want to make sure that all my shields are back to normal. I've got shields of 120 here, but they're currently at 112. So last battle I did take some damage, so I've got a little bit of damage on the starboard side, so let me fix that back up to its normal. And on the port side, notice it from both sides here. So with 120, all four shield quadrants should be at 30, which is the standard. Now, in the rules, it says that you don't have to have them even at the start of combat. You can switch them up, but each shield has to have at least 10% of the shields in each spot at the start of combat. But I think I'm going to keep them all pretty even. I like it that way. You want to make sure that your speed is okay. I've actually got a speed of 16 because of the Horicalcum engines I've got on this particular model. Horicalcum is a special material that can be found in the Starfleet, the Starship Operations Manual, SOM. When you add that to your thrusters, which are T14s, it adds, plus that would make it 15 hexes it can go. And with my particular pilot, who has the Sky Jockey feat, he gets an additional hex of movement. So altogether, the speed of this interceptor is 16. 35 hit points, so that's still at current. Shields all set. Power, I'm only using 98 out of 165 total. It's a bit overpowered, but that I purposely did for the sake of restoring shields at times with engineering actions. We've got our coil guns on the front, single loads, and I've got a linked pair of coil guns added to a turret, which was added to the ship. So everything's all set. I've got all my stats over here for my pilot. So everything looks good there. So I can go ahead and close this out, but I think I'll just minimize it. It's always good to have that within reach so that you can get that. When it's minimized, you can move it around. Double clicking puts it back up. Double clicking up at the heading will put it back down again. So now that that's all set, we're going to create some macros for weapons. The macros are the buttons that you use so that you do not have to open up the sheet every time you need to do something. For instance, we've created some, these are token actions. They're macros that only show up when the token is selected. So I have one for captain, engineering, pilot, science, and the gunnery isn't up there. Why? Because the gunnery is specific to the weapon that you're using. So to do that, we're going to make some specific ones down here. I've already got these two laid out for this particular interceptor. I've also got some other ones down here for some other ships that I have on Roll20. Now, to make them, it's pretty easy. Just want to make sure that you have access to the this down here. And to do that, I'm going to go up here in the corner to the My Settings. Nope, it's not the My Settings. That's wrong. Right next to the My Settings is the Macros, or as this is called, the Collections tab. It's just to the left of the Settings tab. So in there, you're going to go into that. And you're going to go down. And you see I've got all these here, which are set up as the token actions so that they show up at the top. But that's not what I'm looking for right now. If you're coming into the DSC League, those are already going to be there for everybody. You don't even have to worry about it. You're going to go down here to this little checkbox. You're going to click it to make sure it is checked. You want to show the macro quick bar. See how that disappears down below? I'm going to click it. Now, until you have something down here, this is basically just going to be a translucent rectangle right below the first name. You're barely going to be able to see it at all, and maybe not even then, because it will kind of blend in with the background. But trust me, once you click that, the names kind of rise up so you know it's there. Once that's done, now you're able to make your macro. So you open up your ship sheet, and you scroll on down to where your weapons are listed. And when I put the weapons in myself, I tend to put the name of the weapon, the range, and the damage it does in the name right here. So that when that tab is closed, I can still see all the details about it right in the name. In this particular notation, the L in brackets is linked. And that stuff is just doubled up here because there are two weapons there that are linked together. So they fire as one. But I want to make a macro for this. So just making sure that everything is all right there. And before I make that macro, I want to test it out just to make sure that it's working. So right over here, we're going to go up to the chat window and make sure that I can see that. And I'm going to click on that there. It's going to give me this box. Fire at will. No, I'm not going to do that. Use computer. No, it's just a test. And then submit. And I see that it comes up. I have the attack value, which I hover over. I can see what the die roll is. It was a 13. And I have plus 11 for my gunnery, for my pilot, and plus 0 for any other modifiers that were in there. Usually that is the computer. And I chose not to use it, so that came up plus 0. The damage, this shows you it was 44 and what each of the rolls were. That is a magnificent damage, of course, because it is a it's just a test that I'm doing. So of course I'm going to roll great. So that all works. I'm going to take this here, I'm going to click it, and I'm going to drag it No, I didn't grab. And click it and drag it all the way down here. I'm going to put it over the bar and release. And it puts this giant button there. Now I don't need all that. So with it there, I'm going to right click it. I'm going to rename it. And up here, let's call this coil gun. And just so that I know, I'm going to put L. I don't need to put the damage down here. I just know if it's going to hit, it's going to do the damage and it'll come out all right. So I go okay. And now it looks just like this one, except it's not the same color. So I'm going to change the color by right clicking on it again. And let's make it yellow. So now I've got all my weapons for this ship here. The 2 single coil guns, which are basically the exact same thing because they fire out the same arc, and the linked coil gun, which is on the turret. And I have that designated with a T and an L in brackets for the link. And that's how easy it is to make your macros. Now, once they're down there and they start to get full up like this, you're going to have this little bar that you'll need to start scrolling through, which is fine if it's just a few. But if you start getting a lot and you're not using all the ships, you might not want all this clutter. So to get rid of these suckers, you just grab them and you can use that tab to the right of the button and you can move stuff around. So you can put the ones that you're using all the way down to one side, or if you want to, you can just grab it, take it straight up and release. Do that again. I'll grab it, I'll take it straight up until it turns translucent and release, and it's gone. And that's all I'm going to delete because I don't want to redo all of these buttons again. Just those. Okay, with that out of the way, we've got the macros down. So now we're going to go on to placement on the map and what to do when you get to the edge. Well, placement on the map is pretty simple. You want to try to start in the center of the map, or as close to it as possible. Zooming way out, this is a bit far. You see I am way over here in this area, and my opponent, President Durwood, is over here. That's pretty close to the center. If I wanted to, I could move us both over a little bit. We're almost dead center. Now that doesn't always put you down in the right place, so you kind of have to go back in. You see I was placed in the middle of 2 hexes. I'm going to move myself right over so I'm in the middle of 1 hex. I am facing A side. And Mr. Durwood also needs to be moved and adjusted so he is in a hex and facing 1 side. So now we're ready to start. We're in the middle. But eventually we might get to the edge. You want to decide what you're going to do about that before the game starts. So one thing to do is to have an admiral or someone who has control over both tokens. Just have them grab both and move them back to the center of the map anytime one is getting close to going off the edge. You want to do this turn by turn. So if you're getting close at the end of 1 turn, before you make your next move or start the next turn, just see if you can move both of them back over. And whichever way you have to adjust one, like say I had to move mine down and to get it into a hex, do the same for the other one. Down into the right just to make it in a hex. And all the distances will be kept the same. For multiple ships, that might, multiple ship battles where you have like 3 or more people, it might be able to do it because they could get pretty spread out and no way to move it is going to really give anyone more room at the edge. So in cases like that, or if you don't want to have a scrolling map, just agree that the edge of the map is disengagement. If you would fly off the edge of the map, you have disengaged and bowed out of the fight, which is acceptable because not all fights end in disablement of the other vehicle. In that way, actually, Mr. Durwood, how would you like to do the map for our combat? Do you want it to be a scrolling map, or do you want the edge to be firm?
Doesn't matter to me, whichever way you want to go.
All right, let's make it a firm map so that I can't run forever, because you know that's a tactic I like to do.
Yep. Not going to argue with you there.
All right, so the next thing that we need to do is we got to agree on the rules. We're going to be using basic rules. This really only comes up when we're doing special scenarios like races, or we're doing some sort of a tag battle where the amount of damage you deal doesn't matter. It's how many times your shields are hit, and that's a different way to keep track of things. And time. We're just going to be going through some basic rules here. And how much time you want to spend on this, Mr. Durwood?
As long as it takes.
As long as it takes. Okay.
As long as it takes.
So that's an agreement, and turns doesn't matter because it's as long as it takes. So now that we've agreed on that, and you want to make sure that all players are in agreement so that there's no surprises, no one has to duck out and feel like they're missing out. And if you have to put a game on pause and it's okay with the admins, okay, you just leave the map as is, and no one else will go in there, and you'll get to pick it up again when you're all able to play. So, first round, the things we do with the phases. There's a couple of different ways to do initiative. There's the way out of the book, which is you don't roll initiative until you get to the helm phase. But for simplicity, here at the DSCL, we tend to roll initiative at the beginning, and if adjustments are needed when the helm phase comes up, that's fine, we'll take care of it at that point. But just so that it's a good marker for the beginning of each turn, it's been that way for countless ages through all kinds of tabletop RPGs, etc., etc. So we are going to select the token. Let me zoom in a little bit here so you can see what's going on. I had both tokens selected, so I had to deselect and reselect mine. And pilot menu should already be there for you at the DSCL. Use computers. I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to save my computer. Yes, the turn order, which is right down here, the clock.
A very helpful thing to have.
It is. The turn tracker here that we have is actually just an add-on. If you're able to, or for a admiral can do it for you, come down, you just add a label, which is the turn, and hit add. It'll put it in there. Then you can assign this value from turn to turn. So this is going to be turn 1. So with your ship selected, you'll get your turn tokens here, your token actions, sorry. Select pilot menu. Use computer. I don't think I'm going to use it this time. Submit. Helm phase initiative. Yes. Otherwise, it's just a piloting check. Now select. That'll come up over here and automatically add us in over here. And because we have our tokens tied to our sheets, we even have pictures of our tokens up there. So it looks like Don's example ship has a 23 and I have a 28. So I have 1 initiative, which means when the helm phase comes up, Durwood will be moving first and I will be moving second. And then when we get to the gunnery phase, I will be shooting first and Durwood will be shooting second. But the first things first, engineering phase. For the engineering, there are several actions that could be done. We're not going to go over all of them. In fact, we're hardly going to go over any of them in this video. There'll be another video. But just so you know, at the beginning of the round, you want to check if there's any open or minor crew actions that are going to be taken. If you take a minor crew action of glide, that's actually going to change your initiative to a 0 because there's no one in the pilot seat. If you take an open action, that's going to be considered your action for the turn. There's hardly anything that can be done when you're just a single pilot in an interceptor. So again, that's something that we'll mostly be covering in another video, something more advanced stuff. Then check to see when your captain or chief mate is going to be acting. The captain can act pretty much in any phase to help out any of the crew members with their stuff. And the chief mate has several phases that he can act in. Not all in one. But again, those actions, they're more advanced stuff. We'll be covering those at another time. Then when you actually start the engineering phase, you want to check to see if there's any captain actions you do. Then if there's any chief mate actions you want to do. Then if there's any magic officer actions that you want to do, magic officers act in the engineering phase. Not in this video, but we'll cover that in another one. And then engineering actions, which we're not really going to cover in this video. The last thing you want to do every single time, even if you don't perform, is get used to communicating the outcome and when you're finished. Now, since we didn't do anything, there's no outcome to report. But you do want to let the other player know that you're done with that particular phase so that the game can move on. So just to be sure, you communicate it. Durwood, I'm not going to be taking any engineering actions. And then I'm going to press the X engine button up here, which is just a token that emotes for me officially over here that I am done with the engineering phase and we're ready to move on. Now, once you hit that button, your engineering phase is done. Even if you say, oh, wait, there was something I wanted to do. That button is your commitment that you are done and you have missed your opportunity. So now we move on to the helm phase, and it is going to be Durwood's turn to go first. I'll explain.
Actually, I do have a bit of a question, if I may.
Okay.
Can you open up that tab for the instructional vid real quick?
Sure.
So out of the actions on the engineering phase, is there any that an interceptor in particular cannot do? Because you guys are using interceptors, and a lot of them seem like they'd be for bigger ships, right?
Yeah, a lot of them are mostly for bigger ships or more useful for bigger ships. There are a few that could be used for interceptors, but this video is just the basics. So
it also depends on what your backstory of your pilot is too, and you got to remember though that if you're taking any of those actions, that's basically your full action. Well, your main action rather than piloting or gunnery. So the chances of you doing that in an interceptor without a VI, pretty slim chances.
Right, and we're not going over VI use in this one. I just figured I'd skip right over that. Just going to deal with flying and shooting for the most part, and the different combinations of each.
For sure, I just had the question, and maybe other viewers were thinking the same thing.
No, you're doing great, Sinan.
Cool. All right, so it is time for the helm phase. So these are the options Durwood has, since he has the option to move first. First, he would want to check if there's any captain actions or chief mate actions, none of which we're going to go over in this video. Now he's got to make the decision whether or not he's going to glide as a minor crew action and then shoot as a gunnery action, because he's only got the one pilot, or if he's going to fly as a pilot action and then take a snapshot as a gunnery action. Which do you think you'd want to do?
I think I will do a glide, move half my speed, increases my turn radius by 2. And do you want to describe how to move a token, or should I?
No, you can actually describe it. You're first to move.
So what you want to do is left click your token, and you want to kind of wiggle it around a little bit before you hit the right click, which will start your counter. And you're not seeing nothing right now, but as far as what I can see, it's anchored to where I started, and what did I say? I'm gliding, so half my speed, and every time I'm going to turn, I'm going to click, and I got to remember my turn radius is increased, and then the last one, you're going to click again, and then you're going to release, and you should see my move. And then also you'll need to adjust your facing, which when you have your token selected, you're going to have a little square and then a tail sticking out, and you want to grab that tail, and you can adjust. And my piloting is done.
All right. So, what happens if you make a mistake?
Oh, for moving?
Yeah.
I think that's only a GM that can do undo.
True.
Otherwise, if you were an admiral, then you would just right click and undo, and you can just send it back.
Right. And if you have an admiral that's actually mitigating a match for you, that's always a good thing. You can have them just undo if you make the mistake, or if you're unsure of the movement and you don't quite know if you're going to be able to pull off what you want to pull off, just ask your opponent if they could ping the location where your ship was, and just keep their mouse there, so that if you need to go back and redo the move, they can ping it, and you can put your token back and try it again. But you want to track it every time you move, so that the opponent knows where you're moving, how you're moving, and how far you've moved. All right. So Mr. Durwood has moved. Tracking the movement, undoing mistakes, you have to have an admin do that for you. And then the facing, of course, is making sure that you're facing the right way. When you are moving, no matter what the ship is, it has to move forward into the hex it's facing. If it turns first and then moves forward. So the last hex that you enter was always entered from the hex side directly behind the ship. Science officer action can actually happen before or after the piloting action. It doesn't have to happen after. Just put it here. We're not going to go into it in this video, but it's one of those options that can happen. Then when you're done, it's just communicating the outcome, which would be any piloting checks. If there was a piloting stunt or maneuver that you were pulling off, you have to do a piloting check to pull off a lot of those. And Mr. Durwood has notified me that he is done with his helm phase, so I can do mine. And I think I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to do a piloting and attempt to take a snapshot when it's my turn. So I am going to grab, wiggle a little bit. I clicked. Now I can move and Mr. D in this, but I am able to see what I am doing. I'm going to get it nice and close. We're going head to head. So that's where I end up, and I've got to change my facing because I came from hex into this one. So I got to change my facing that way, and now we can really get a close-up of the action. And there we are, face to face. And I'll let him know that I am done with my home phase because my piloting action was all I could do. So now we're ready to move on to gunnery, the final phase in every round. The things to be done in gunnery, possibly, are captain actions, minor crew actions, which is a snapshot, gunner actions, which could be any number of the gunner actions available in the book. And that's pretty much it within the gunnery phase. We're not going over captain actions this video. So minor crew actions would be a snapshot in gunnery. Since I flew and I was last to move, I'm going to be first to shoot. And since I moved, I have to take a snapshot if I want to shoot at all. So for that, it's going to be, and I only get to choose one of the three weapons because I can only shoot one. I think I'll use the coil guns that are linked on the turret because that's one shot, fires both weapons at the same time, same target. Now this shot is going to be at a -2, so whatever number pops up here, we'll just -2 from it because it's a snapshot. Not fire at will, that's a different action. And I will use the computer because I didn't use it for my initiative or any piloting, so it's still available. I only have one node. So I click yes on that and submit. And because it's a turret, it's going to give me this extra window. It wants to know which arc I'm firing through. And we will submit forward because it's already there. And there it is. I rolled a 24, or rather the result was 24. I rolled an 11. My gunnery check was 11. And I get +2 for the computer. Now I have to -2 from that because it was a snapshot. So effectively, it's a 22. Now, does that hit your armor class?
No, it does not. Because if we remember from my build, my armor class is 27.
27. And because I'm admin, I can click on his ship and see that right here. But if you're just a player, you won't be able to even select the other player's ship. So you won't see that. To get that information officially, you have to scan to do that. That's an action. It's probably not going to happen during the intercepted battles, but in larger ships, it could be an action the science officer could do. And between friendly battles, you might just say, hey, you need a 27 to hit, just to move things along. There's no secrets in fighter bat, in interceptor combat. Well, technically there is. So I missed. Didn't miss by a lot, but it was a fairly easy roll there. Mr. Durwood has taken his shot with his mining laser. He rolled a 17, and if I click on mine, you can see
how disappointing.
26 is what he needed. And that is not a snapshot because he took a glide in. So that is the actual roll for him. 4. Yeah, that's disappointing. And with that said, I am going to let my opponent know I am done with my gunnery phase and ready for the next turn. And he has done the same. So now that that's all set, the last thing that we need to do after communicating when we're done is apply any damage that we've been dealt to our shields and then to our hit points, and then apply any that came up. And it goes in that order because if you score any crits, they don't affect your ship until next turn. I.e., you can fire at each other all day long in the same turn, and nothing will take effect until the end of the turn when everything is dealt out. And then if there is any environmental rules or things going on, or if you need to check if there's a victory condition, i.e. did someone score 3 hits to 1 shield, that might be a victory condition. That gets checked at the end of the turn. So now we're on to round 2. Wash, rinse, and repeat. So I'm going to change that to round 2. Have my token selected. Going to hit the pilot button. I'm not going to use a computer for this one. I am going to make this a helm initiative and submit, and 35, I'm on there. Mr. Durwood got a 32. Not too shabby. However, I think this time I am going to take a glide action. So that will actually change my initiative. Because if I'm not piloting directly, it doesn't count as a pilot in the seat. So that would make my roll a 0, and therefore my initiative is an 18, which means I am going to be going first for the helm. And we're not going to be doing any engineering. Mr. Durwood is done with his engineering as well. And we're moving on to helm. I have to move first with a glide. Speed is 16. My glide move is 8. And my turn radius improves or gets shrunk down by 2. So I have to widen my angle.
Just realized we never did my initiative adjustment the first time I glided.
The adjustment should have happened then, but you were moving first anyway, which is why that doesn't matter too much until it does. So I grab Wiggle and think.
Are you sure you're not confusing that with drifting?
Nope. Okay. I looked up the rules before we started. Alright, this isn't the greatest, but it's what I got. That is a glide. +2 to the turn mode and half speed. And that's all I've got. I am going to be done with my helm phase.
I will be doing a flyby.
Of course you are. Now, flyby is one of the other 2 piloting actions that can be done. Besides the fly.
I think I just made it. Glad I used my computer.
Yeah, you use your computer for that, huh? That's a good one. Okay, so the pilot gets, they can fly, which is basically maneuvering their ship at up to their full speed. They could maneuver, which actually increases their, it reduces the distance between turns by 1 to a minimum of 0. It's not something that interceptors typically do because they already have perfect maneuverability out of the gate. So you really can't make an improvement on that too much. So that's one that interceptor and fighter pilots tend not to do. But larger ships, it could be useful. You could use a stunt or a full power maneuver, which is you spend a resolve point, you get up to 50% of your movement rate added to your move for that turn.
Which is a bonus because level 6 is the first time that you can actually do that.
Exactly, and we build our characters at level 6. But Mr. Durwood did a flyby, which is a stunt, one of many. That was 15 plus 1.5 times the tier of the enemy vessel. I am using a tier 4, which would be 6 added on to the 15, makes it a 21. He rolled a 21. That will allow him to take a shot with any weapon he wants on any shield facing he wants to hit as he flies over my ship. But that doesn't get resolved until the gunnery phase, so I still have to move. And it don't much matter where I'm going to move because he's already got the flyby.
You moved already.
Not this turn. Oh, you're
He
right.
did.
I did.
So,
I'm sorry. I was waiting for you to say you were done with your helm phase.
oh yeah, I forgot the buttons.
And so we're on to the gunnery phase. So Derwood gets to shoot first.
This is for the flyby.
Mm-hmm.
Rolled a big fat 7.
Yeah, you did. Alrighty. And you're done with the gunnery? There he is. Alright. I've only got my turret I can shoot with, so I'm going to shoot with it. But this will not be a snapshot because I glided. So I'll use the call again. No. Yes for the computer. And this is actually going out my port side. And there's that one. A huge whiff. A 2. So Roll20 has decided that it doesn't want us to hit each other at all.
Sometimes that's the way it works.
Yeah, it does. And with that, I'm done with my gunnery and we're ready for the next round. We are going to be doing just a few more rounds here. Now, in this round, I would like to show the use of that only open crew action that would be available to interceptors. It is not something that often gets used, mostly because it is out of the character operations manual, but it's a very simple one. The open crew action it's a ready weapon system. It allows you to get a weapon system set up for one weapon on your ship in such a way that it is perfectly calibrated and timed to make the most of its shot. But not this round. I'm basically going to be readying the weapon system to be shot the next round. And that's going to be happening at the beginning. All right. Now this one doesn't have a roll. It just merely takes up my crew action for this round. And as long as it's not, the weapon I set up is not fired this round, but it is fired on the next round, no later than the next round, it will deal +1 damage if it successfully hits, and +2 damage for starships of tier 6 and greater. I'm using a tier 4, so that wouldn't actually help me get that extra point of damage. Not the +2, only the +1. Sometimes that's all the help that you need. So my initiative is going to suffer this turn. So it doesn't matter what I roll. 18 is what I'm going to end up with. And Mr. would get a 15. So he actually loses to me.
Man, I'm not rolling for anything today.
Yeah, that's
Big fat 2.
Alrighty, so as it goes, I am not doing anything for engineering. I've already taken my action, my regular crew action. Oops, hit that one too many times. So a helm phase for Mr. Durwood.
I should have stated I was gliding. That would have changed it. Why would he move in first anyways?
Yeah, that would change your initiative to 10.
Yeah.
Right. And you still would have moved first. But yeah, that does save your gunnery action for you. And I am not gliding. I'm not piloting. I'm not doing a damn thing. Just sitting there. And so my helm phase is done as well. And now, because I actually did win initiative, I get to shoot first. And it's going to be a snapshot, because I took my crew action to ready my coil gun. However, I cannot shoot this coil gun, and if I shoot it now, I lose the readied action that I put on it for next round. So I will forego my gunnery as well. And that's all done.
Well, I have a turret, so I will be fired at you.
Absolutely.
Believe you're in my starboard, right?
You are correct, sir. If I do this here. From your ship, your starboard runs from this line all the way over to, this line. That's your starboard arc. And you'll actually be hitting me in my starboard arc, which runs from here
No minus to that roll.
to there. Right. A 21. That is a marvelous roll for an easier to hit ship. Oops. Because my arm class is 26. If that were a tracking weapon, that would have hit. My TL of 21. So this is the final round that we're going to do in this vid. Alright, so it looks like I am on the losing side here. And I am going to change that to an 18 because I think I'll be gliding this round. Not doing any engineering, so I'll let you know that. Movement, I'll have to go first. Grab and jiggle. Right click. 2 spaces. 2 spaces. 2 spaces. And that's as far as I go. Oops. Have a turn. And I'm done with the helm phase. I'm not doing any sciencey actions or anything else.
Well, I think I'm going to do another stunt. I'm going to do a flip and burn.
Ooh.
And that's half my movement, right? And
Yep,
then I flip over.
up to half your movement. And at the end of your movement, which I believe has to be a straight line, you simply reverse direction. Which is an excellent maneuver for you to do here.
All right, I'll go ahead and move, and then
Your piloting check is going to be a 15 plus 1.5 times your tier, which is a tier 6.
Yes, sir.
All right, so that'd be 9 plus 15. That's a 24. You rolled a 28. You definitely get that.
And then if I failed, then I only move half my speed and I don't get to turn.
Right. You don't rotate.
Oh, and then I suppose it is my turn to fire.
It is.
And since you...
If you're done with your helm.
Oh, that's right. Hang on.
Oh. A light torpedo launcher, you say?
Yeah, he talked so nicely about that target lock.
Yeah.
I rolled pretty good there, but
Right. So that has a speed of
lame-o
16
damage.
hexes, which is easily able to get me. So we don't even have to worry about putting a marker on the map. It simply flies and hits, just like it was a direct fire weapon. And it hits me for, is that minimal damage? Darn close. Well, that's going to be on my forward shield. Oops. Yeah, if you're on your selection, your measuring tool, you cannot select tokens. So make sure you go back to select tool to select your token and adjust shields. 3 points. Taken, not stirred. All right. So this is the moment of truth. This is what I prepared for at least one turn. The coil gun. And the coil gun. And the coil gun. What I am going to attempt to do here is called a broadside. I will get a single shot, which will be the first roll that will show up here. That will effectively be for all the weapons. And I'll roll damage separately for them if they also hit. So, it doesn't require a roll to accomplish it. You simply say you're doing it. It does put a -2 to the attack roll. That will be a no there. And yes, I'm using the computer for this shot. So, here it comes. Out of the forward arc. A 27.
oh yes, sir.
All right. So
Hits me
20,
directly.
27 hits for one. It hits for all as a broadside. And this particular one, wow. Would you look at that damage? And actually, it's a one more than that. Because this was the weapon system I had prepared. So instead of 27 damage, that would be 28 points of damage from that coil gun. And these other rolls won't matter for the attack. It's only the damage we're doing because it was a broadside.
Well,
Actually, no. It's a 25 to hit. Because broadsides does apply a -2, even though it wasn't a snapshot.
well, I was going to tell everybody not to worry because they remember my shields. I had 15 each arc, so I still had plenty. But with that snapshot reduction, you missed me.
Yeah, it's not a snapshot. It was the broadside, but it's the same penalty.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, -2. So that missed, which means it misses for one, it misses for all. That is both the benefit and the downfall of the broadside. What a waste of damage.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
3 4s. No, 4 4s, 3 3s, and a 2.
And that right there is the basics of Starship combat. When you're applying damage, you basically go round by round, turn by turn, as you're going through until, get rid of this here, until your shields are down to 0. And then you start applying damage to your hit points.
How about you show where the critical threshold damage is?
The critical threshold is right here on your ship sheet. It is always going to be 1/5 of your total hit points when it falls. So each time that you score 7 points, and at every 7 points of damage that the hull takes, you have a critical hit, which is then rolled down here at the very bottom. This whole box is for criticals and system status. So the roll of critical effect is a button. You just push it. And we see right here the critical effect scored was an 87 on the roll, which according to the chart in the book is power core. So on my ship, I would then look for power core down here, and I would put it up 1 step to glitching. And that...
Nice thing about that is now whenever you do anything that pertains to your power core, it's automatically going to be configured into whatever role you do.
Yep. And the more damage you take, the higher that penalty is going to be. Things can get pretty difficult at that point.
And then tell them the circles the next to it are for your weapons.
Yep. The weapon malfunctioning, normal, glitching, malfunctioning, and wrecked are for each of the arcs. So if you get a weapon hit, let's see if I do that. It will. There we go. So it rolls once for the weapons and then rolls a 1 through 4, which you see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. For which arc? So forward weapon arc, I would click that. So different arcs could have different levels of damage.
You rolled 3 times. That's actually possible if you got like 21 points of damage, or maybe 14 on a critical.
Yep. If all these were criticals that I had taken, there would be 1 power core, which would put that up, 1 sensor, which would put that up, another power core, which would move this up another button, and then the weapons hit, which I have right here. And after all of those criticals, that's what my ship would look like. And all of these penalties would be applied to the rolls that are affected on the ship sheet, which is awesome. Less math is always good.
I love all that automatic stuff. Just make sure you don't forget to push it all back.
Yeah, I think I will do that right now. I'll put all this back.
So just to clarify, that's the critical threshold is every time in Tombstone's case, he drops 7 HP.
Yep.
Every time
every time I do that. Also, if you score a critical hit on your roll here, and you're doing hull point damage, that will score an additional critical. And there are some science actions that can kind of guide that so that you don't even have to roll. It will specifically damage a particular system. But that is for another video. That's pretty much it. That's the basics of Starship combat. You keep going until either the time limit's been reached, or the turns have been reached, or victory condition has been reached, or the other opponent says, "Hey, good job, you beat me."
And the most important thing when it all boils down, is that you have fun and also you keep a good demeanor. And when it comes to a point of like making a mistake or not moving it correctly, everything is always up for discussion and easy resolve, because we want it always to be a fun experience for everybody and also to be a learning experience.
Absolutely. I mean, I kept it a little bit on the dry side because this was an instructional video, but Mr. Durwood can tell you from experience that my combats usually have a lot of banter, which is both playful and antagonistic at times, but always meant in good sport. So thank you everyone for watching, and good luck out there in your ship builds and your character builds, and may all your combats be able to be walked away from or flown away from.